The inclusion of the minority should not mean the exclusion of the majority. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to leave a comment just to help me on the algorithm, but you don't know what to leave, just leave a knife. Because once again, activists are going to come for my neck on this one. All right, guys, so I woke up to this. Apparently, the official video of Paris 2024 opening ceremony is deleted from Olympics account as viewers' backlash grows. They really should have saw this coming, because you cannot show respect to your people by disrespecting another group of people. And I've seen the excuses. I've seen people saying that it was supposed to be the Feast of the Gods, which if it was supposed to be, I don't know why the Olympics would decide to take it down. If that was truly what it was supposed to be, then you missed the mark, because it looks way too much like the Last Supper. When I look at that, and that is the first thing that I think, unprompted, without having even read any other context, I just look at the pictures or the video and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely the Last Supper. And then you zoom in and it's this cast of characters that really would seem almost disrespectful in any context. And I don't mean that to be rude, but it's just these people are kind of a mockery to absolutely anything that they claim to represent outside of a queer context. Now, had this been the gay games, which is the gay version of the Olympics, but obviously not nearly as big, not nearly as much money, then I would have been like, okay, that makes sense at the gay games. But for this to be for mainstream, and when you consider how many countries aren't actually woke, you can't expect to shove that down people's throats and have people just be like, I'm glad you gave me that. It's like, no, nobody is glad you gave them that. People are upset, and they have a right to be. And once sponsors start pulling out, which is what started to happen, even though the Olympics is going to try to save face as much as possible and really try to mitigate the damages, once the sponsors start pulling out, it's curtains for whatever it is that has offended those people. Because whether anybody wants to accept it or not, every single thing you see on TV is meant to make money. Nobody wants to go broke because you've got this idea that you want to push on the mainstream that is for a very segmented audience. Because when we talk about the queer community, which isn't the same as the LGBTQ community in general, you are talking about a minority of the minority. And I think that these people just got a little too used to that 10 years or 9 years that they had, because I think it started in about 2015 when woke culture really took over, and you had power-hungry queer and LGBT activists trying to get everybody canceled for anything that could be perceived as even somewhat homophobic, transphobic, or whatever other phobic that they were trying to push at that particular time. So they got used to that in those 9 years where everything really was their way and everybody just had to shut up and put up with it. And if you were Christian, you were deemed as the devil, ironically enough, and you just had to keep your mouth shut and allow them to say and do whatever they wanted to do. So now that the shoe is on the other foot, and America, as well as a lot of the rest of the world, has really come to its senses and been like, hey, why are we being directed by the minority of the minority right now? Why is it that we've got to bow down and kiss the ring of this particular group that really should have no control at all? This isn't inclusivity anymore. This is outright pandering, because that's what it's all under the guise of, is inclusivity. And in a society where people are really trying to push equality, or at least, again, that's the guise that everything's being sold under, is equality, where is the equality when one particular group has free reign, and that being the queer and LGBT activists? These people have free reign to say and do anything they want to, and everybody else just has to put up with it. But when it comes to mainstream society, you've got to keep your mouth shut. You've got to watch your P's and Q's. You've got to make sure that you do not say anything or do anything that might even be perceived as being somewhat homophobic or transphobic transphobic. Well, now that people have come to their senses, welcome to true equality, where you can get in trouble just the same as anybody else. You are no longer protected by this invisible cloak of inclusivity and equality that really is none of those things in the first place. So, welcome to the real world. And this is no doubt going to be framed by the queer community as some sort of discrimination. I'm sure of this. But really what it is true equality. I say that because you have to remember that our job when we're hired for things like this, no matter what our personal beliefs are, is to please the intended audience. Now, if you are creating your own art at home, if you're creating your own art for your social media, that is a completely different story. But when you are hired to do a job, and the job is to entice people to want to watch the Olympics, which I've discussed on another video, viewership has been going down for the Olympics. So if they bring you in and say, hey, create this opening for us that's going to make people want to watch the Olympics, you cannot do the opposite and then be surprised when you don't get praised for it. It's just not the way it works. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember, but there was a point in time where Madonna was hired to do a Super Bowl commercial for Pepsi. And it was a really big deal. It was for the Like a Prayer video. And Madonna went all out being Madonna. She had a black man portrayed as Jesus, which I know now wouldn't be a big deal. But back then, this was in 1989. So the country was not ready for a black Jesus. The country was not ready for Madonna to kiss this black Jesus. There were crosses that had been set on fire in the background. And mind you, this was for Pepsi for the Super Bowl. And Madonna got so much backlash, and the Catholic Church denounced her. I believe she was excommunicated as a Catholic at that point in time. So when this kind of thing happens and your intention is to be provocative, which I don't care what the creative director says, he had put out a statement that it was actually meant to capture the spirit of Paris, and you can love who you want to, and you can choose to believe or not believe, and I'm paraphrasing here. But if that's what you're trying to get across, why would you choose to disrespect one particular group of people? And also, everybody's not even on the same page when it comes to this, because there was the obese woman that was in the position of Jesus in that depiction of the Last Supper. She's Jewish, queer, lesbian, I think is the way she describes herself. And she was talking about the fact that it was about uniting people, which that is not at all what it did. And then you have the director saying it was about capturing the spirit of Paris. Then when it came to the blue man that was dressed like a Smurf, in an interview he said, let me read this to you. The man dressed in a skin-tight blue bodysuit that left very little to the imagination was dressed as the Greek god of wine, festivity, and theater, Dionysus, who was later unveiled to be French actor and singer Philippe Katerine. Today he laughed off the criticism, telling BFM TV, "It wouldn't be fun if there were no controversy. Wouldn't it be boring if everyone agreed on this planet?" So clearly he was under the impression that it was actually meant to be provocative. So again, if your intention is to be provocative, you can't blame the rest of the world when you don't provoke the emotion that you had intended. And I don't even know if the intention was for this to be particularly good, because I can't imagine, if you know the history of the way things have gone down when people have tried to mock Christianity in the past, I don't know how you would think that you would get a result other than this. I think this was just a failed attempt by the Olympic Committee to try to garner some extra controversy, thinking bad attention is better than no attention, and then it turned out to be worse attention than they were actually intending on, and now they're having to suffer the consequences. And I will reiterate what I said yesterday. If you didn't see that video, it'll be linked at the end of this one, but I will reiterate what I said yesterday when I said that situations like this cost all of us in the LGBTQ community opportunities. Most recently in Pride Month, there were were big LGBT influencers that were saying that there is less and less money being dedicated to the LGBTQ community even during Pride Month. And that's because LGBTQ has started to lose people money. And whether you like it or not, that is the name of the game. If you're looking to get mainstream money, if you're looking to get mainstream attention, you have to respect what it is the mainstream wants. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.